On the evening of June 2, 2007, 18-year-old Kelsey Smith left home for what should have been one of the most ordinary moments of her young life. Just 9 days earlier, she had graduated from high school. She was excited, in love, and headed out alone to buy a 6-month anniversary gift for her boyfriend, John. A simple trip to Target. In and out. Nothing unusual, nothing sinister. But citizens of the Abomination Realm, sometimes evil does not kick the door in, sometimes it waits quietly in the parking lot. Kelsey left her home in Overland Park, Kansas around 6:30 p.m. and arrived near Oak Park Mall roughly half an hour later. Once inside the Target, everything appeared normal. She even called her mother to ask where she could find gift boxes. It was such a small, harmless conversation, the kind of phone call nobody would ever imagine becoming the final one, because after that moment, silence. Time passed, and Kelsey didn't come home. No explanation, no message, no quick call saying she was running late, and that was not like her. By all accounts, Kelsey was responsible and dependable, the kind of person who would let her family know if even the smallest plan changed. So when her phone began going straight to voicemail, and more than an hour passed without a word, the fear began to settle in. Then her boyfriend John arrived at the house to pick her up for their date, and he had no idea where she was either. That was the moment the situation crossed from concerning into terrifying. Her family reported her missing. At the same time, her sister and John began searching desperately around town, holding on to the hope that maybe this was something explainable, maybe a dead battery, maybe car trouble, maybe some weird misunderstanding. But what they found would only deepen the nightmare. While searching around the mall area, they discovered Kelsey's car parked outside Macy's on the opposite side of Oak Park Mall, nearly half a mile from where she had last been seen. That alone was strange enough. But the real horror was in the details. The car was completely unlocked. Kelsey was gone. And aside from her phone, nearly everything else was still there. Her purse remained inside. The gift she had purchased for John was still in the vehicle. It looked less like someone had simply stepped away for a moment, and more like something had interrupted her life in the most violent way possible. Then investigators pulled surveillance footage from the Macy's parking lot, and what they saw was chilling. At 9:17 p.m., Kelsey's car rolled into the lot, but Kelsey was not the one behind the wheel. Instead, an unknown man wearing a white t-shirt stepped out from the driver's side and hurried away from the scene. The footage was blurry, frustratingly blurry. No clear face, no easy identification. Just one haunting image, a man in white abandoning a dead girl's car as if it meant nothing. At that point, investigators still didn't know just how important that white shirt would become. With no time to waste, they turned their attention to the last place Kelsey had been seen alive, the Target. At first, the footage looked routine, painfully routine. It showed Kelsey entering the store, shopping, speaking on the phone with her mother, paying for her items, moving through the aisles like anyone else on any other evening. But when detectives reviewed the footage more closely, frame by frame, they noticed something small, something easy to miss if you blinked. As Kelsey approached her car, a figure in a white t-shirt appeared to be rushing toward her, and suddenly, the entire video changed. Investigators went back and watched the store footage again. This time, they weren't just watching Kelsey. They were watching the predator. There, hidden in plain sight, was a man in a white t-shirt following her from aisle to aisle, watching, tracking, waiting. He stayed close throughout her shopping trip, shadowing her movements like a wolf circling prey. Then, before Kelsey exited the store, he rushed out ahead of her. Police believed he did that for one reason: to get to the parking lot first, to ambush her the second she reached her car. That realization turned an ordinary surveillance video into something far more horrifying: a recorded hunt. One of the cameras near the entrance captured the only somewhat usable image of the suspect's face. Another helped identify the make and model of his truck, which had arrived at the store earlier that evening. It wasn't much, but it was enough to push the investigation forward. A tip line was established, and the public was asked to help identify the man seen stalking Kelsey. Then, after countless bad leads and false reports, one call finally broke the case open. A neighbor recognized both the man and his truck from the news coverage. Police moved in quickly and arrested 26-year-old Edwin Hall at his home. According to reports, he was preparing to leave the state for a supposed vacation with his wife and children. Fortunately, officers reached him before he could disappear. When questioned, Edwin admitted he had been at the store. He admitted he was the man seen on the surveillance footage. But he denied taking Kelsey, denied killing her, denied everything that mattered. That lie would not survive for long. Earlier, investigators had recovered a single unknown fingerprint from the seatbelt latch inside Kelsey's car. At the time, they had no match for it. But once Edwin was in custody, police took his fingerprints. It was a perfect match. And then came the devastating final discovery. That same day, authorities found Kelsey Smith's remains near a lake in Missouri, around 20 miles from the target, where her last normal moments had been captured on camera. Because of surveillance footage, the man who stalked her, abducted her, and tried to vanish back into ordinary life was exposed. Edwin Hall was charged with kidnapping and murdering Kelsey Smith. In July 2008, he pleaded guilty to avoid the death penalty and was sentenced to life in prison without parole. And that, citizens of the Abomination Realm, is what makes this case so deeply disturbing. Kelsey was not lured into some remote place. She was not wandering alone in the dead of night. She was in a store, under bright lights, around other people, doing something millions of us do without thinking twice. And still, evil found a way to stand only a few feet behind her, smiling, waiting, stalking, until the moment was right. A regular shopping trip, a packed parking lot, a predator in plain sight. The kind of horror that reminds us the most terrifying monsters are not always hiding in the woods, the caves, or the dark corners of abandoned places. Sometimes they are standing right next to us in the checkout line. On September 9, 2017, a homeowner in Eureka, California, was suddenly awakened when his doorbell rang at around 2 a.m. At first, it may have seemed like nothing more than a strange late-night disturbance, the kind of thing you would hope had some harmless explanation. But when he checked the footage from his doorbell security camera, what he saw left him completely stunned. Standing silently in front of his house was a strange figure that appeared to have been there for some time. At first, the shape is difficult to make out in the darkness. The figure blends into the night, making it hard to tell exactly what is standing there. But after a moment, it slowly steps forward. As it moves closer to the camera, the image becomes clearer, revealing what appears to be a person dressed as a clown, holding a cluster of balloons. The figure pauses for a moment, slightly bends forward, and stares directly into the camera. That alone is what makes the footage so unsettling. There is no sudden movement, no words, no clear explanation, just a silent figure standing outside someone's home in the middle of the night, almost as if it wanted to be seen. Then, without saying a word, it calmly turns and walks away into the darkness. Understandably shaken, the homeowner contacted authorities. The sight was especially disturbing because, at the time, the town had already been whispering about similar strange sightings happening late at night. Some residents claimed they had seen a mysterious clown-like figure wandering through neighborhoods after dark, and those reports only added to the growing unease. What made the situation even more unsettling was when it happened. The incident took place during the height of what many people called the killer clown scare. Throughout 2016 and into 2017, reports began appearing across the United States of people dressed as clowns standing outside homes, schools, and wooded areas, often late at night. In many of these cases, they were described as silently watching from a distance or behaving in ways that made people feel threatened or unsettled. Some reports even involved claims that the clowns were attempting to lure people closer. While many of those sightings were later dismissed as pranks, others led to police investigations and widespread panic in several communities. With that already in the public mind, seeing a clown standing silently outside your house at 2 o'clock in the morning would have been enough to send chills down anyone's spine. As far as public information shows, authorities were never able to identify the person inside the costume. Whether it was simply a prank, someone trying to frighten residents, or something else entirely remains unknown. And that uncertainty is exactly what makes the footage linger in people's minds. Because sometimes the most disturbing part of an incident like this is not just what was seen on camera, but the fact that no one ever got a clear answer as to why it happened at all. Andrew Gosden was just 14 years old when he disappeared in September of 2007. Those who knew him described him as quiet, intelligent, and independent. He was a gifted student with a strong interest in music and video games, and by all accounts, he was dependable, responsible, and not the kind of kid anyone expected to simply vanish. In fact, Andrew had an exceptional school record, with perfect attendance, which only makes what happened next feel even more unsettling. Then came the morning of September 14th, 2007. At first, it looked like an ordinary school day in Doncaster, England. Andrew left home as if he were heading to school, just like usual. But sometime after leaving, he changed course. He withdrew $200 from his bank account, returned home briefly, left his school uniform behind, changed into casual clothes, and then set out again, this time without telling anyone where he was going. He was later known to have been wearing a black Slipknot t-shirt and black jeans, carrying his bag as he made his way to the train station. There, Andrew used money he had carefully saved to buy a one-way ticket to London. What makes that moment so haunting is the small detail people still remember all these years later. The ticket clerk reportedly told him that a return ticket would only cost a little more. Andrew declined. He wanted a single, just one way. Later that day, CCTV cameras captured him arriving at King's Cross Station in London. The footage shows Andrew walking calmly through the station at around 11:25 in the morning, carrying his bag, blending into the crowd like any other teenager passing through. Nothing in the footage seems dramatic. Nothing appears visibly wrong. No panic, no struggle, no one guiding him, no obvious sign that anything terrible is about to happen, and that is exactly what makes the footage so disturbing, because that short clip would become the last confirmed sighting of Andrew Ghostin. After he walked out of that station, he vanished. Andrew never used his bank account again. His phone was never switched back on. He never made contact with friends or family. No verified evidence has ever explained where he went after leaving King's Cross, who he may have met, or why he traveled to London that day in the first place. Over the years, investigators explored multiple possibilities, including whether he traveled there voluntarily, whether he was groomed or exploited, or whether he came to some kind of accidental harm after arriving in the city. In 2021, 2 men were arrested in connection with the investigation on suspicion of offenses, including kidnap and human trafficking. For a brief moment, it seemed like the case might finally be moving toward answers, but in 2023, both men were released from the investigation without charges, and police said they were confident the 2 had played no part in Andrew's disappearance. Even so, the case itself remained open. Now, more than 18 years later, Andrew Ghostin remains missing, and his disappearance is still one of the most haunting, unsolved cases in the United Kingdom. A quiet morning, a gifted 14-year-old boy, a one-way ticket, a final glimpse on CCTV, and one question that still lingers like a shadow over that station. What happened after Andrew Ghostin walked out of King's Cross and disappeared into London? What makes the footage so chilling is that nothing in it looks obviously wrong. And sometimes, citizens of the Abomination Realm, that is what makes a mystery even darker. Not the panic, not the chaos, but the silence of an ordinary moment right before someone is gone. A hospital security guard was doing something pretty routine, going back through CCTV footage after a bicycle had been stolen from the parking lot. Nothing unusual at first, just another boring shift, another theft, another night spent staring at glowing monitors and empty hallways. But then, the footage showed something that had absolutely nothing to do with the missing bike. Near the entrance to the hospital's emergency ward, a wheelchair sat alone in the hallway. Empty, still, quiet. And then it moved, not tipped over, not shaken, not bumped by some passing nurse. It rolled forward on its own, slowly, almost carefully, like something unseen had placed its hands on the back of it and gave it a gentle push. Then it stopped. For a moment, everything was still again. Then, just a few seconds later, the wheelchair began to move backward. Now at that point, hell no. I don't care what anybody says. I'm not sitting there calmly finishing my shift after watching an empty wheelchair casually cruise through a hospital hallway like it's got unfinished business. Absolutely not. The guard reportedly just stared at the screen, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. No one was nearby, no doctors, no patients, no hospital staff passing through. Nothing visible touched the chair. It was just there, moving by itself in the silence of that corridor. And somehow, The explanation he got afterward only made it worse. When he showed the footage to his supervisor, he was told that the wheelchair had once belonged to a patient who had recently died there just days before. The supervisor apparently joked that maybe the former patient's spirit had come back for one last ride. A joke, sure. But hospitals have always carried that kind of energy, haven't they? They are places where pain lingers, where people arrive in fear, where some leave healed and others never leave at all. Life and death pass through those hallways every single day, and because of that, hospitals have long been tied to ghost stories, shadow sightings, unexplained voices, and moments that nobody can quite explain. Now yes, maybe there's a rational answer. Maybe the floor had a slight slope. Maybe an air current pushed it. Maybe there's some boring, logical explanation hidden in the background. But let's be honest. When you see an empty wheelchair rolling through a quiet hospital hallway with nobody around, logic starts packing its bags real fast, because that image hits something deep, something primal, something that tells you maybe, just maybe, not everyone checks out when they're supposed to. And that, citizens of the Abomination Realm, is what makes this footage so unsettling. It's not just that the wheelchair moved, it's who or what might have moved it.